guys, my name is Sierra, and in today's video we will be discussing the topic of island biogeography applications in ecology. In particular, we are going to focus on the implications geographical isolation can have on a species. But first, what is biogeography? Biogeography is the study of geographical distribution of plants and animals and the factors responsible for the variation in their dispersal. In general, the most common factors included in these studies are climate, habitat, altitude, and geographical segregation. Species whose habitat is on an island would most likely be experiencing the latter. Biologists have determined that islands generally have a simplified ecosystem when compared to their surrounding ecosystems. Because there is little access to and from this particular habitat, there are fewer numbers of species, fewer biological relationships between the species, and thus a higher rate of extinction. However, a fewer number of species can mean fewer number of predators and thus less competition, which can in turn allow the species to thrive and dominate. Next, we will cover two examples of species whose island homes played a large role in their survival. When you think of each of the following species, which area of the world would you think of first? For most, the answer would likely be Australia. The reason for this is simple. These marsupials are typically only found in this region. However, this only creates a new question. Why are they only found in this area? One idea for this supports the theory of continental drift. It is believed that when the world was composed of only one large continent, marsupials were widespread throughout South America, where they then traveled across the then ice-free Antarctica to populate Australia. Eventually, Australia and all of its organisms began to detach and drift from the mainland, in turn creating a new island continent. Soon, waters stretched wide and deep around Australia, acting as a method of isolation from other ecosystems. This limited the levels of threat and competition these organisms would face. In addition to this, it is speculated that Australia separated from the other continents before the evolution of eutherian mammals. This would allow the marsupials to be dominant mammals in this area due to lack of competition from other mammals. In this way, the island-like structure in which they live plays a huge role in their ability to survive by minimizing mammalian threat or competition. The tail of the dodo bird is one I'm sure we're all familiar with, but it has never been made entirely clear just how this organism became extinct. The following will just be one of the many theories regarding the extinction of the dodo bird. The dodo bird was known to be endemic to the island of Mauritius, meaning it wasn't found anywhere else in the world. This isolated the species pretty intensely. They were isolated from adjacent ecosystems and whatever threat they had, limiting the number of organisms the dodo had to compete with or fear. This resulted in presumably comfortable levels of resources that allowed them to eat and breed as they pleased. So what went wrong? Well, one theory is that the island created such an ideal environment for the dodo that it actually began to degenerate. This means that its evolutionary traits, such as its ability to fly, were actually lost throughout generations due to different adaptations or simply the lack of need for this ability. Losing these traits, along with the general absence of predators, the dodos were completely unprepared when European voyagers landed on their island, bringing with them many new species. It was the introduction of these new species that would be the fatal blow for the dodos. These organisms, such as ship rats, were taking up the dodos' resources, eating their eggs, and threatening their very existence. Because the dodos had regressed so much over the generations, they had little to no defense against these new threats. As a result, the population of dodo birds on the island of Mauritius was dwindling day by day, until they eventually became extinct as we know them today. In conclusion, it is evident that living on an island can both help and hinder the survival of organisms. If Australia hadn't broken off and become the continental island it is today, it is likely that the marsupials wouldn't have been able to thrive and exist in the way that they do. as they'd likely be exposed to much more competition. Similarly, perhaps if the dodo had inhibited somewhere on the mainland, it wouldn't have regressed in the way it had, and it would have had better odds at survival against those threats. Regardless of negative or positive impact, it is clear that the idea of geographical isolation plays a major role on island organisms and their way of life. I hope you learned a little bit about island biogeography today, and thank you so much for watching.